Okay, here we are.
Okay. Well, hi, Om. Hi, Laurie.
Hello.
So I'm here to ask you about Tantra Meets BDSM on the 14th and 15th of July. And I'm just curious, it seems like a strange mix of BDSM and Tantra. So could you explain a bit more to me of how that actually works?
Laurie, do you want to start?
Well, okay, I'll just say that it was your idea. So I've been teaching Tantra for about 22 years, and Om took a lot of Tantra classes from me and others. And then he can talk about his interest in the darker side of Eros. And then one day he called me and said, "You need to come and have a session with me." And I was like, "Oh," it was surprising to me. I wasn't anything I was like thinking of. It's funny, it wasn't anything I was thinking of, but it was not like I wasn't thinking of it either. It was just somewhere in my consciousness. So I had a session with him, and it was wonderful. And then then he wrote me at some point and said, "Let's do a class together." So we just collaborated. He said there's more in common with Tantra and BDSM than there isn't. And I said, "Show me." I said, "Show me what that means. How does that, and so I'm now going to say to you, Om, that you should take it over because you've convinced me, but you actually had the wherewithal to put these things together.
Right.
Well,
I can just go straight to the heart of it and just give you my cosmology, if you will. I believe we have a soul. I believe we have an inner container. I believe our inner container, our soul, is on a journey. I believe it expands and contracts, and all the spiritual practices of all the different traditions have been created to help us along this path. Now, BDSM may sound like a pretty strange thing to fit into the same category as classical traditions of spirituality. But in my experience, it actually is. We are basically hacking our consciousness with all of our different practices. Buddhism tells you how to be present. Tantra tells you how to be present during sex. It is bringing your presence into high states of sensation. And BDSM is doing exactly the same thing. It is, when it really works, it is telling you to be awake, to be present in states of high sensation, physically and emotionally. I think all the practices are building our inner container. All the practices are designed to broaden and widen our states of consciousness and to bring us more into presence, more into ownership of the entirety of who we are. And I think the practices of Tantra and BDSM are much more needed now because the other practices leave out our eros, and we can't really afford to do that anymore. Yoga alone is not enough. Exercise alone is not enough. We are a society right now that is deeply troubled in its psyche. So we need to enter the psyche. We need to bring our spiritual practices, our awareness into our psyche, into our eros, into our repression, into our taboo. And for that, all the wisdom that is in the DS arts, all the wisdom that is in Tantra is very much needed in our life. I have felt it for myself. I have felt it expand my system, bring more joy and release in my system. And then I'm pretty much selling people what I eat myself. I'm like, this is what works for me. And I think this is valuable to society. So to me, there isn't actually any big bifurcation between any of the practices. This is why we also beg, borrow, and steal pretty much from every tradition. Laurie and I are both big fans of Osho. We are big fans of Osho's dynamic meditations. And again, the logic everywhere is the same. We need methods to kind of cut through the haze of our confusion, of our taboo. Osho came up with dynamic meditations to help us do that. Tantra came up with methods where you could do that during sex and intercourse. And BDSM is telling you how to do that in other states of high sensation. So to me, it's kind of layers and layers of the same practice, of the same logic. The logic is exactly the same. In essence, what we're doing is exactly the same. Only we are crazy enough to bring the practice of consciousness to sex and taboo, which is what freaks people out. But qualitatively at the core of it, what you do in BDSM is actually not fundamentally different from what you do in a sitting meditation. You are expanding your container, you're expanding your consciousness, you're bringing more of that, whatever terms you want to use, whether traditional terms like light and grace are very non-traditional terms, very secular terms like presence and awareness into your system.
So I want to just say too that when I first started Tantra, I felt I couldn't understand people who wanted to be spanked or paddled or flogged. I couldn't understand it. I thought they must be numb and they must want to feel something at all. And that was my projection. And I think that's probably a lot of people's projection. Like they just don't get it. They don't understand it. And since I've been working with you and actually experimenting myself with having some more DNS in my life, I see how much it's expanded my whole threshold of having more pleasure, of
Right.
being expansive and being able to tolerate more sensation in a body that's made of skin, which skin is our largest sensory organ. So it's been an amazing journey for me working with you and putting it into my life
Right.
based on where I had to come from my projections. You know, it's interesting. I did an interview recently with John Hawken, who's British, and he's one of the first people that ever put dark eros into the light study of Tantra, and he paid heavily for it. People didn't understand him. It's years ago, like before you and I probably even knew each other, he started to do that, and people didn't get it. And it was so easy. He's at the end of the interview, he said to me, "I'm not so mean now. You don't think you're not scared of me anymore, are you?" And I'm mentioning that because we're doing this interview with you, Sanjay. You're in London. And, you know, John Hawken is known, you know, in the UK, even though he doesn't live there anymore because of the price he had to pay for marrying the dark with the light. And so I bring that in because I think the time is now. I think Om and I getting together and coming to London now, you know, somebody led the way and we didn't know, I didn't get it. You know, anyone that I met back then who talked about him, like I told him this, I didn't get it. And now I do get it, and I think it's important, and I think it's a way for people to find another way to wake up inside, to wake up themselves, their whole being. So I just mentioned that.
So what would you say the benefits are, let's say to me, if I attended as a man or a single man or a single woman? Or would I need to like come to this course like as a couple? Is there like a preference or a one better than the other? Or
There was a time when Om only worked with couples, but we've opened up, we've changed that. We've found that it's that people, whoever comes, if they come in a couple or if they come as individuals, they don't necessarily do every exercise together unless they choose to. And often they don't, because people have, sometimes when they're in a couple, they have stuff on each other. You know, they have a certain way of being, and then they have a certain way of pretending. They don't even know they do that anymore, but like they look for each other for permission and things like that. And in our courses, we don't have time to wait for all that. So we encourage people to go for it in whatever form. If you're a single man, you'll come to the course, and in some places you'll pair up with someone, or you might be in a threesome with two other people that you don't know, that you haven't met before. And you're always a choice. Like, we're not going to push you off the deep end of the pool to start with. We're going to ease you into some, let's say, higher risk activities towards the end, you know, towards the end of each day. And you'll still always be a choice. If there's things you want to do, fine. If there's things you don't want to participate in, we're fine with that. You will get a great experience of a taste of what's available to you, and you'll taste as much from that, let's say, smorgasbord as you want to. You'll feel safe. You can count on that. And we're not discouraging couples, and we're not discouraging singles. We're welcoming everyone. And also, we don't care if you're not if you're not like gender oriented. Like if you're gender bending, we don't care about that either. We don't care. Like everyone is welcome.
I can just add a little bit to that in that dominance and submission is a paired game. It's a two-person game, or at least a two-person game. It is not a solitary exercise. It is not a solo practice. So you are learning to interact with another human being. You're learning to embody these two archetypes of the dom and the sub, and each student plays both sides throughout the course to get a sense of it. But then at another level, the education you're getting is for yourself. So if that sounds contradictory, the easiest analogy would be like, think of a ballroom dancing class. Now to learn ballroom dancing, you need to dance with other people. You need partners. You can't really learn ballroom dancing on your own. You need to learn how to lead, and you need to learn how to follow. Learning the steps alone is not enough. It's a start, but it's not enough. And yet, at the end of the class, you have not become better dancers as a couple. You have become a better dancer individually. You are a better dancer now. And then whoever you dance with, you are a better dancer now because you danced with people and they danced with you and you learned together and you became better. So I see this dynamic very much in working with couples and teaching people. Everybody needs to learn to embody these two archetypes, and the deeper they go, the more fully they embody them. Now they carry that knowledge and wisdom with them, and whoever the new person they encounter, they're more skilled at interacting with them.
And say, for instance, so I myself have done some work in Tantra and BDSM, have some experience in both. What's special about this workshop that would lead to me learning more?
Well, I'm going to say that we really focus on communication and release. So we do release exercises from Tantra. I don't know that, I know for a fact that not all Tantra teachers focus on release. Often they teach you a lot of beautiful things, eye gazing and connection and energetic, running energy. And often you don't get to experience release. So I'm kind of like the queen of emotional release. I like people to be fresh and clear before they interact with other people, even before they set their intentions, because I don't, I think most people don't know their intention until they're actually clear. So we do focus on emotional release and clearing, and then we focus on some very specific kinds of communication which enable one to know where their boundaries, when they've met, coming up to their limits and their boundaries, and being able to communicate without having to stop and go in their head. There's some very intricate, skilled things that seem simple when we teach it that enable people to work together in a way that keeps the action going, but a person is communicating where they're at in terms of their boundaries right up to the minute, and they're not in their head about it. They're not stopping and going, wait a minute, where am I? Am I comfortable? How do I feel? Like they don't have to stop things. I just don't know that we've had very skilled BDSM people in our classes, and they're always come away with something big from our class, even though they may have had years of ropes and years of flogging and years of other things, even torture, who knows. But they get something very big in the way of communication from us that they didn't have before. So that's the part I'm going to say about that. Om probably has something to add to that as well.
My emphasis is very much on people learning to embody the dominance of archetypes, because there's a lot of DS education out there which is very much skills oriented. And you need skills. Skills are wonderful to have. But there is a kind of a flop side of DS play for me, where somebody only has skills, but they actually don't understand what it means to be a dom or a sub, what it means to actually handle the human being that is across from you. And I think male doms are a little bit more susceptible to this. They get really infatuated with their toys, and they forget the human being, and they actually don't have great skills at dealing with the human being in front of them. So my emphasis always is on, first and foremost, your play is about the person you're playing with. Put down your ropes, put down your floggers, first embody your archetype, get in touch with this human being, communicate, as Laurie said, with this human being, get in touch with this human being, and then all the skills you can bring on top of that, right? So my emphasis is very much first embody the archetype, first make the connection with the human being, understand them, and then bring in your physical skill sets instead of only learning the physical skills and thinking you get it now.
Yeah.
And you've done this workshop throughout the US, and it's the first time it's coming to London. So I just wondered about what excites you about bringing it to Europe. What is the added flavor that you think this can bring to?
Well, we keep hearing, first of all, that the English people are very kinky. I don't know this from personal. So I'm hoping for a very open and interesting audience that is willing to play and play hard and go far. So yeah, this work kind of needs to land with a certain people. At least enough people have to be ready for it. And I think London feels like certainly one of the places where enough people are ready for it.
And we've also we've done it in the U.S., Canada, Bali, and Australia. So just so you know, we've been around a little bit. We've kind of did a half world tour, and now we're doing the other half.
We're going to London, we're going to Vienna, and we are in conversation about other cities in Europe. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're excited. I mean, we're really excited. We love bringing it to people who want to do it, who
Right.
want to really, and they want to have fun and go deep.
And quite frankly, I feel something is changing in the zeitgeist. I feel little by little, more and more people are finding that this is not just for the weirdos, that this is something for me. And they're kind of coming in little by little. So this work seems to be growing steadily, which is nice to feel.
Great, that sounds really good that it's coming over to London and changing the zeitgeist. I think that's a great thing, because I think London on the surface can be very reserved, but underneath there's a lot going on that's kind of under the surface and hidden. So I think anything that brings that forward and brings people out in their eros is a good thing.
Well, people's reservedness, people's taboo is rich food for DS play. One could say if there were no such thing as sexual repression, we would be out of a job. Our job is to bring liberation, and if everybody was perfectly free, we would not be needed. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world that is heavily suppressed and repressed in its taboos and its old ideas. So in a way, we have a lot of work to do, and we have a huge market out in front of us and more people to bring it to.
We're never going to be out of a job.
It's like we make pizza or burgers. They're always going to want
it. I'm glad we don't make pizza. Anyway, yeah, I think it's good. I think my experience with teaching Tantra in London has been always wonderful. People being very open. And I feel like people they always needed, this is in my experience, since about 2000, I started coming to London. I haven't been there as often lately, but I feel like people always needed just a little nudge to go a little further. And I feel like people there were so hungry for it, and then they really took it and really embodied it. Like they were serious about it. They weren't just taking it as the next thing. They took it, they came to class, and they were serious about it. And that always made me feel fabulous. So I'm coming there with that same kind of, my heart is open, saying, whoever shows up, they're the exact right people. And if they need a little nudge to go a little further, that's okay, we'll give it. There's still going to be a choice. But I know whoever shows up is going to take what we give to heart.
Right.
I know that.
I think people just need to see that it's people just like them who are doing and exploring this realm. And And in some ways, I won't speak for Laurie, but in some ways, I'm a pretty normal human being. I don't own any leather pants even. So, and if you had told me
I'm
15
not
years ago,
normal.
but I'm like, it's like whatever people have ideas, like only certain type of weird people do this thing. And I'm like, not really. It's not me, it's not you, it's not the people in our classes. They're people just like anybody out there. You couldn't pick out the people in our class in a lineup. Right. If there were a room full of 100 people and I told you 25 of these people were in my class, pick them out, you wouldn't be able to do it. Right. You can't. They don't look any different. They don't act any different. They don't even dress any different unless there's an occasion for it. They don't talk any different. They don't have any different professions. They don't have any different economic scale, nothing, religious scale, ethnicity. There's nothing. They just, right. And I think a lot of people out there still have the idea that no, there's this only strange bunch of people who do this exploration. And once they see, wow, it's my girlfriend's doing it, and my coworker is doing it, and so there's like, oh, there's people like me who do it.
Yeah, I think that's true. We've had every profession and every walk of life. So
Everybody, and in like consistently in every class, you name it. From doctors, surgeons, accountants, to sex workers, to politicians, to whoever, we just whole gamut.
and we've had
I think this is so funny. I often feel the yoga crowd is more segregated than the PS crowd. I actually feel that. I feel the yogi people I can pick out on the streets of New York because they walk the walk and they want you to know they're yogis. And like, yep, does yoga, really proud of her ass, really giving Patanjali a run for his money, really got that spiritual ego going. I can pick out the yogis, no problem. But who actually does DS behind closed doors, I couldn't tell you.
I was going to say too, we've had newlyweds. We had a couple that were newlyweds. We've had people of all ages.
All ages.
We've
like
had
literally from 20s to like 80s. It's
well,
like
we actually had somebody who was like closer to 16 or something. We've had a mother and daughter.
yes.
We've amazingly, we've had all kinds of people come. So
I think young people are actually normalizing DS play more and more. They're like, everybody does role play. What's the big deal? So I don't know. I'm not in touch with the youth that much right now, but I hear that it's more normalized there than it is in people in their 40s and 30s.
Well, I'm looking forward to you both coming across and having a great workshop in London. I think London can definitely do with this sort of work and this sort of
London needs a
integration.
spanking. That should be our title. No, it's not a good title.
what is the title?
London needs a spanking.
Oh. Okay, that's good. You're gonna go down in history as saying that London needs a spanking.
New York needs a spanking too. I'm just saying it's the way we're going is all.
Yes, yes, yes.
I think New York needs a bigger spanking than London. I think people in New York are a little, like the Zen story goes, the cup is really full in New York. People in New York think they just know everything already. It's really hard to teach them anything. So.
It's great. Anything else, Sanjay?
No, I think that's. I think that's. I personally don't have any other questions unless you have any final comments.
Well, I think we should just let people know that you're our organizer. You're organizing the event in London, and so how can people get in touch with you if they want to know more? And we'll also tell them how to get in touch with us.
Well, they can contact me on Facebook. They can also call me on 07958 082185. And yeah, I can leave my email as well. I can leave that with you when you post.
Okay, that's great. So, and Sanjay, what's your last name so people know how to find you on Facebook?
Sanjay Joshi.
Joshi. Okay, good. And then people can find me. Well, actually, the event they can find on Facebook. Also, they can look up Tantra Meets BDSM London, and they can
Correct.
find that, and they can follow the links and register through that. And you can find OM Rupani, or Laurie Handlers, and you'll also be able to find links to find this event if you happen to be in London. And if you don't happen to be in London, I mean, I'm speaking to some people who are in other parts of Europe who are probably coming in for this, who are looking to come in for this. So wherever you are, you're welcome. We'd love to have you there. We'd really
We're
love to.
teaching in Vienna the weekend after London. So if you're in Europe, and Vienna is closer from there.
So the dates for London are July 14 and 15.
Right.
The way they say it in London is 14, 15 July.
Right. And
Correct.
Vienna is 21st and 22nd of July.
In Vienna.
Yeah.
So please get in touch with us and let us know if you're one of these people that you could be as normal as you want and still interested in this, or you can be as kinky as you want, or you can whatever. We're welcoming you, and we'd love to see you when we're there. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Laurie.
See you soon.
All right.